sources, save the timber, and ask questions via the internet or live here. So we have a lot of areas to cover today, and
pass it to you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I must say it's a great pleasure to be here at this wonderful green event, Ieelpa, bringing a fresh breath to the way that we look at the challenge of sustainable green energy and changing our societies in that direction. As you can see from the slide that you're looking at there, I come from Bucks New University, which is in the United Kingdom, and just to give you a quick flavour of where that is, we are to the west of London. I'm sure many of you have visited London, and we are in a region called Buckinghamshire. It's a beautiful region in the UK, and one of the first impressions you would have if you arrived in Buckinghamshire was of a very green area. So it's very comfortable for me to be here today with this bit of grass and flowers at my feet. Buckinghamshire is a very green area with large acres of forest. And the paper I want to present to you today has been written with my colleague, Professor Florin Juras. And Florin Juras is director at Bucks New University of a Centre for Conservation and Sustainability. And one of the things he has been doing in Buckinghamshire is developing a project to use the wood from the forests in Buckinghamshire to provide a local source of energy and electricity to local businesses. My own background is in the area of human resources. One of the things I'm very interested in is the whole area of how we can change organizations and change the behaviors and attitudes of individuals within organizations. So the focus of this short presentation is on how we can introduce change in this all-important area of sustainable green energy. Because as we know, climate change is generally accepted as the largest issue facing mankind in the 21st century. It has increasing coverage in the media, and there's an ever-increasing recognition that there needs to be a fundamental shift towards sustainable models of living. And I think many of us in this room today would recognize that the pace of change in organizations towards creating a more sustainable green society has not been startling. However, there are important signs of change. As many of you know, last year, President Obama has committed himself to kick-starting a big revolution in our attitudes to a sustainable future. As you can see from the slide, he said that now is the time to confront the challenge once and for all. Delay is no longer an option, he wrote. Denial is no longer an acceptable response. And that was a quote from a British newspaper, the Sunday Times. And this isn't just empty verbiage. No, he has actually committed £481 billion to an economic stimulus package in America in order to create 2.5 million jobs in what we now call green-collar jobs. So it's exciting times, and maybe we will see some important change. Now, if we move away from the US and turn our attention for a moment to the United Kingdom, which is the country where I come from, and we look at where a lot of initiatives perhaps need to be focused, then we can see that a lot of our focus actually needs to be not on the domestic sector, but on the non-domestic sector. And this is one of the reasons why this presentation is focused on organizations. So have a look at these facts that you have on the slide there. In terms of the impact on energy consumption from organizations, non-domestic users, this is significantly higher than the impact from residential users. The UK's industry and service sectors, as you can see, contribute just over 32 million tonnes of carbon to the atmosphere, and that's over twice the emissions contributed by domestic users. A lot of this is, of course, through power station electricity consumption. And as you can also see, industry and commerce account for almost 3 times as much of the UK's annual waste as compared with the waste contributed by households. So because so much waste is coming from organizations rather than domestic users, the focus of a lot of our attention, I'm sure you would agree, must be on what we can do to create a more sustainable future within organizations. So organizations are the focus of this presentation today, and what we can do to create a more sustainable green climate within organizations. Now, as many of you will know, this is a business school, of course, that in order to achieve change, we have to work on us, human beings, and trying to achieve a change within the way that we think. And, of course, we need to focus on human attitudes, and I would argue in this presentation, very importantly, we must also focus on behavior. In order to achieve change, we need to change people's behavior. Unfortunately, there is relatively little information on how you change behavior within the very specific area of a sustainable green organizational culture. This area is remarkably understudied. The whole area of individual behavior and how it relates to energy, water, and waste use and recycling is understudied. Why do I say that? Well, let me share with you the results of a study by Professor Florin Juras, my colleague at Buxton University. And what Professor Juras did was study, he did an extensive literature review studying 165 articles, chapters and reports, and looking at what these had to say about how you change behavior within organizations within the very specific areas that I have mentioned. And here's a snapshot of the results of his study. I hope you can see some of those results at the back of the room. What we have listed on the left are the main foci of attention: energy, water, recycling and waste. And then you can see an impressive number of studies that have looked at these issues. This is just hits, if you like, on Google. The number of studies across all domains looking at these 3 areas. And then if you move a little bit further to the right, the number of relevant hits, which by relevant hits I mean studies that actually address the issue of changing human attitudes and behavior in relation to these topics, then you can see that the numbers dwindle dramatically. So from talking about more than 1,000